Easy now.
Come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. Never have to cut you off like right now. You see, I don't have to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Try the marijuana. I was loving you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they feel the change. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip. Yeah, you're
Welcome to the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast, powered by The Athletic. Shout out to the company. My name is Michael-Shawn I'm with my co-host, Christopher Kidd. Make sure you follow us both up on the tweet machine and follow us on YouTube, the Seahawks Man-to-Man YouTube channel. I guess it's subscribe, not follow, but you guys know what I mean. Chris, talk to him.
What is up, everybody? It's your boy, Christopher Kidd. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206, and that's CKID206.
All right, we are coming to you right after the 2022 NFL draft. The Seahawks got their 9 picks. Should we rattle them off, Chris? You got a list in front of you? Actually, let me see.
Might as well. So round number one.
Let me see if I can remember them off the top of my head.
Uh-oh.
I don't have a list in front of me. All right, so I'm gonna try to get the pick numbers right too.
Oh boy.
So, here we go. Let me see if I can do it. Charles Cross, left tackle out of Mississippi State, number 9 overall. Boye Mafe, edge rusher out of Minnesota, 40th overall. Running back Kenneth Walker from Michigan State, 41st overall. Abe Lucas, right tackle from Washington State.
Go Cougs.
Yeah, go Cougs. Number 72 overall. Coby Bryant, cornerback from Cincinnati, pick 109. Let's see. Tariq Woolen, cornerback from UTSA, pick 153. Tyreke Smith, edge from Ohio State, pick 158. All right, this will be 7th round now. Bo Melton, receiver from Rutgers, pick 229. And Tariq Young, receiver from Lenoir-Rhyne, which is in Lenoir-Rhyne, North Carolina, I learned, pick 233.
And Mike, you have successfully got 100% on your
there we go.
Who was drafted quiz.
There we go. And I really don't have a list in front of me. I know people watching on YouTube can tell, but people who listen can't tell. I really don't. I was off the top of my head. So there we go. Chris. That's a good list.
That's a solid list. I think everyone after the draft, watching the draft, I think everyone was liking how it was unfolding. It wasn't, as we had Danny Kelly on about a month ago doing the draft preview, it wasn't let's get cute and show that we are smarter than everybody in the room. We're going to take this guy you've never heard of, but on tape, we like what he can do, and we feel that he will fit well with moving forward offensively or defensively, what we plan to do as a Seahawks organization. And for the most part, they just took the guys that were available and best. That is what you wanted to see. And I think for the first time since you've been covering the team, Mike, they did that.
Yeah, it's been so obvious that there's been at least one who the hell is that pick from these guys that even Greg Bell, Tacoma News Tribune, he even kind of mentioned it to Pete. He was like, here, and I'll read you exactly what he said to Pete, because I wrote it down. I used it in my story because I thought it was just such a good illustration. Greg was like, Pete, there didn't seem to be an outlier at the pick where we're all going, what was that for? Or where'd he come from? And then Pete was like, what are you trying to say, Greg? And, we all kind of laughed, but, and Greg was like, no, for real. You had needs and you filled them. That was, he was telling the coach that. Now, he also said, Greg was also like, Pete, I know you know the job better than I do, but Greg was right. It's been very clear to all of us, and not just people in Seattle, people who cover the draft as a whole. They never really know what Seattle's going to do, because you think all these certain picks, all these certain guys make sense for Seattle, and then they take someone else, and you're like, who the hell is that? Where did that come from? Or I had a 3rd round grade on them. How many people I've talked to since, over the years since I've been on the beat, who have been like, yeah, I had a 3rd round grade on Rashad Penny, or I had a 4th round grade on such and such, or I had a 3rd round grade on LJ Collier, and it just never felt like they did what made the most sense. And I think one way to quantify it is the consensus big board. I'm pretty sure I've been talking about it every year now, is that Arif Hassan at The Athletic puts together. It combines analysis from 70 different, analysts, draft experts, and big boards. So it's really comprehensive. Like, I cite it a lot, and people who read The Athletic know that. And I think it's very rare that you're going to find something that compiles so many different opinions, because everyone can say this guy's a reach, this guy fell, this guy slid, this is a steal, quote unquote. You never really can quantify that stuff, but the big board at least gives us an idea, right? So I'll give you an example of how sensical that their picks were in this draft. Seattle's picks, I mean. So I'll go by the big board versus where guys were picked. All right. So look at this. Charles Cross, 9th pick. Where was he at on the big board? Number 9. Boom. Boye Mafe was 40th. Where was he at on the big board? 34. Kenneth Walker, 40th on the big board, taking 41. This is all just adding up. Abe Lucas, number 75 on the big board, 72 overall pick. It just kept going. Coby Bryant was actually 89th on the big board. He got taken with 109. That's actually probably their best steal, quote unquote, of the draft, though there's probably not a big difference between the guy taken at the end of the 3rd and the top of the 4th. About the same type of guy, but either way, another one by Seattle that just made sense. Tariq Woolen was 65 on the big board and was at pick 153. So actually, that's probably their biggest steal there. That's actually a huge, huge jump. Pick 158 was Tariq Smith. He was 142 on the big board. So 16 spots later. And then Bo Melton, I think, was pick 229. And he was 161 on the big board. Right? And then I don't think Tariq Young was on the big board, though. At pick, once you get in the mid 200s of the picks, you're just kind of throwing darts. So I don't really kind of is what it is there. But overall, Chris, 8 out of 9 of those picks are either taken right at where they were on the big board, or even where you could count them as a steal. I don't think we've ever seen a Seahawks draft like that since me and you've been doing this. And this is how many drafts we done now? We did 2017 draft.
4.
No, I think we weren't. 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. So this is our 6th draft.
Woo, that's why I'm not good at math.
Yeah, this is our 6th draft doing this. And I can confidently say I've never come away from a draft. I may have liked some of their picks, but I've never come away thinking, wow, their draft made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That shows you how bad they've been in the past, though, where my first take is their draft made sense. It should make sense every year.
Take who's best available and don't try to outsmart everyone. Just go down the board, who you like, and take them. Don't over-exercise the opinion of, I think we could find this guy who struggled last season, but we think he's our guy. Just those type of Pete and John isms that they've used over the past 5 years, because this year they got it right. And that's good to see. Now it's really about what these athletes do on the field, because they were drafted because of their ability to play the game. And they felt that based on the board. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
And nothing, you don't hear that loud ass. Oh, it's getting louder. You hear it? No?
I don't hear anything.
Oh, okay, good. Because I'm hearing everything.
This is like the movie Bird Box, but for hearing. I don't hear nothing, bro. It's just you.
Well, you know what? Perfect. Back to my point. They went off the board who they liked, and it matched up with experts, and that's what you wanted to see. They didn't go out and take in the 4th round or the 1st round some 4th round guy that could have been taken and rather be a running back, receiver. They went who was best available, and they took that player. And now, again, to my point previously, they just got to prove it on the field. We've talked about it before. Maybe a handful of these guys are actually going to pan out. If they all pan out, that's even better. But statistically, that's not how it works. But you want a couple of them to really stand out. And I think they followed it well. Maybe they listened in when we had Danny, and they tuned in and were like, you know what? Danny has a point. Mike has a point. We're going to go ahead, not get cute. We're going to take the best available, and we're going to set ourselves up to see what we can do. They have championship aspirations. It starts during the draft. I think they pretty much did a solid job in the draft. I'm sure we'll have a couple of critiques here and there, but for the most part, overall, they answered the call, and they didn't try to get cute, get smart. They took the best available, and it showed.
Yeah, I think I'm going to toot speaking of when we had Danny on, I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit here. I think I did 3 mock drafts before the draft, and I'm looking down because I think I have some of them pulled up. I know I did one mock draft before Russ got traded, so that one was a little iffy because you never really like their needs were different. That was before Carlos Dunlap got cut. That was before Benson Mayowa got cut. That was before Bobby got cut, and before Russ got traded, and before they acquired Drew Lock and Shelby Harris and Noah Fant. Like there's a lot of roster shuffling that was done. I think I did that mock like the day I landed in Indy. So that just shows you how far back that one was. That said, between that mock, the two mocks that I did after, actually, let me break these mocks up into categories. So there's a pre-Russ trade mock, and then there's a mock of what I would do if I was them. I did that one on April 5th, and then I had a mock that came out, I think the day of the draft, the day before, that was like, all right, here's what I think the Seahawks will do. So I did three very different things with the mocks, because otherwise I would have been picking the same guys because my opinions didn't change, relatively speaking. So that first, between those three mocks, I picked 5 of the guys they took. 5 of the 9 guys they took. I mocked Charles Cross to them at 9. I mocked Abe Lucas to them at 72 in the same mock, actually.
Fire.
One mock I had Coby. One mock I had Tariq Smith. I think that was actually the same mock as well. And then in another mock I had Tariq Woolen. I think that was in the final mock where I kind of predicted what they would do. So like the fits make sense as well. That's probably why this is probably the highest I've been on the Seahawks draft in quite some time. Probably actually ever since I've been on the beat, again, since 2017. Like everything just kind of fit. Not only did they take the best available guys at the positions that they needed, with the exception of, we can get into the Kenneth Walker thing a little bit later. I don't obviously know who was the best available by the 7th round. I had stopped paying attention. Not even gonna lie to you. But actually, I kind of thought they might take Carson Strong in the 7th round.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because at that point, I mean, whatever. It's the same thing like when they took Alex Magoo in the 7th round from FIU in 2018.
Yeah.
But I think they took guys who needed to do. They took guys who have like a master's in what they need from them. And I steal that phrase from the homie Ray Roberts, who we had on for our O-line pre-draft episode. Ray loves to say that specifically with the line. It's like, stop taking guys who, like if I had to keep that college analogy, stop taking guys who took one class in every major. Stop taking a guy who took a philosophy course and a drug class and some criminal justice stuff, and some art classes. No. Take a guy who was like into biochemistry or something like
for the last 3 years.
Yeah, take that guy. He's in like chemistry 103, then chemistry 203, then chemistry 303. He's a chemist. That's him. Take that dude. And that's what Ray has said with their linemen. Like, stop taking a guy like Justin Britt who can play tackle, guard, center.
Shows weakness.
Take a Damian Lewis who just plays guard because you need a guard.
Yep.
Simple. And I thought they applied that pretty well across the board. Took Charles Cross. What can Charles Cross do? Everything. What do they need their left tackle to do? Everything. Right. But primarily block, right, in the passing game. That's what they need. They took Abe Lucas. What can Abe Lucas do? A little bit of everything. But what can he specifically do? Block in the passing game. So I think, and Kenneth Walker fits in that regard too, with his ability to make guys miss. Boye Mafe fits that with his ability to rush the passer. Same thing with Tariq Smith. Like, I need guys who can rush the passer. Well, let me not take guys whose best thing as an edge defender is the run game. That's why if I was grading Jacksonville's draft, I'd be really critical. I'd be like, why would you take Travon Walker? Like, the best thing he might do might be defend the run. Now, it doesn't mean he can't rush the passer, but if you're going to take a guy that high first overall, he should be like a Hall of Fame caliber pass rusher, in my opinion. So compared to like what Jacksonville did, I think that the Seahawks just got guys that can like do the thing they really, really need. Coby Bryant's really smart. You're going to need guys who are going to have to pick up on this, because I expect them to run a totally different scheme, probably a little pattern match stuff. You got to be able to pick that stuff up. And also those guys can flat out just cover. At least Coby can.
He proved it, yeah.
Yeah, and once you get into the 5th round, where like Tariq was taken and Tariq, they went real black in that 5th round. They went and got brothers for real. I knew they was black by the name. Like once you get into that round, you're just kind of taking just some traits that you like. But then first 4, like through the 4th round, I was like, okay, cool. You took a guy at the spots you needed, and then you were like, let's double up on stuff that we really need, like like corner, like the whole process, man. I give it to Pete and John. I've been really hard. We both been really hard on them. We've had people on the show that have been really hard on them for reasons that are fair. Let's be very clear.
They answered the call, Mike.
Yes,
they answered.
They Maybe they just needed. You know what was funny? And we can get into the prospects after this, but it was funny after the draft. Pete Carroll, or I think it was John Snyder mentioned, he was like, yeah, this was the first time we've been able to have Jody in there. She was like giving us, she had her opinions on things, and like John was like, yeah, no, there was some stuff she wanted and we got it done. And he wouldn't specify, and he said it kind of with a smile. So like he was joking, but actually kind of serious. And it was funny. I was thinking about it later. I was like, that's probably why this was their best draft. Jody was probably like, hey, stop. See the guy highest on our board?
Take him.
Shut up. Everybody shut up. I'm the owner. Take the highest guy on the board and let's move on. Now, like, if I don't know if that's what happened. Nobody has told me that or anything. But like, it was funny. I did kind of see a correlation between like, it's funny that they had the owner in the building and may have had their best process.
Keep it going.
Also, it was maybe this might be speak to football on a macro level. It's like, they had a woman in there and did the best thing they've ever, did the best they've done. Like maybe you need more women in the room in the draft board. Who knows? There's a bunch of ways to exploit, like to find edges in the draft. And I think that like there's two of them. There's two like ways that some teams are catching up on. Like is A, to have a numbers based approach, like to really lean into the numbers more than other teams, and B, put some women in there.
Yeah.
They ain't no team got women in there. You're getting a voice there that no other team is getting, an insight that you just can't get. So maybe that's what they did. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's the key. I'll go try and work on that in a story or something like that. See if having a woman in there, having the owner in there was like, oh, that's why we just nailed this thing on paper. Like you said, prove it.
Whatever they did, let's hope they continue it. But you did mention getting to the prospects. Let's get to the prospects because they answered the call. All right. They go out and get a guy who is, quote unquote, his freshman year, he redshirted. And then the following year, he was an all SEC. He missed one game, and that's Charles Cross. That is first team All American. His second year, first team All SEC. Can't hold trophy, skip the bowl game for obvious reasons. But this guy is definitely coming in and trying to be that left side that protects not Geno Smith, but Drew Lock.
No, I mean, no, it's I think should we talk about the quarterbacks at the end, or we talk about them now?
We can do it at the end because we want to focus on the fact that they got a left tackle. They are sold on him. He looks good with his strengths match up what the Seahawks want to do. There's weaknesses that they can hopefully build upon, and he can be better at that as the season progresses. But you are looking at Charles Cross to come in and start week one. That's the mindset. He's a first round pick, 9th overall. You are expecting him to come in and be that left tackle, be your strong side. Well, not strong side, be your left side and protect Drew Lock. But we'll get to that later. That's what you're expecting from him. And I think he can do that. He was in an air raid system. So it's kind of, okay, you have that down, but now we need to add to your game. And that's going to be getting out and blocking, because the Seahawks want to do one thing this year, and that's get back to the run game. Pete talked about it, been talking about it for the past 2 seasons, how he wants to get back into it, be more of a game, need a quarterback that can game manage and throw the ball deep when needed. But for the most part, Penny's going to get his touches. Don't know the status update of Chris Carson, but I'll be honest, it doesn't look good. So you're going to have Rashad Penny. They drafted Kenneth Walker III, so he's going to get some touches for sure. As you wrote in your latest story, what was that, yesterday, Mike? You said he's going to get some touches based on just how the lineup is looking?
I mean, he's going to get some touches based on the how volatile the running back position is. No guy makes it through 17 games and a playoff run on a year-to-year basis. Nobody does that. I think Alvin Kamara has been pretty available for the Saints, I think, over the years. But, like, no, man, guys, your running back is going to miss games.
Yep.
Just count on it. And so, yeah, every team needs multiple. We'll get into the running back value thing later, but yeah. Yeah,
and then you're bringing in a guy that, according to Dane, he wrote on the Beast that Cross shows outstanding hand exchange and movement patterns and pass protection. He projects as a starter with Pro Bowl level talent thanks to his pass blocking. So that alone, he's already projected to be that great. Now you add in the element of being able to run block. Man, he is going to be fun to watch on Sundays. So this is big, and the Seahawks went and did that.
Yeah, I think with Cross and Abe Lucas, I think the reason that I had mocked them to Seattle, independent of their lack of run blocking snaps, and because they both played in the air raid, both played for Mike Leach. Mike Leach, I think, recruited Abe to Wazoo and then left and then got there while Charles Cross was already there at Mississippi State. And they both played for Mason Miller, O-line coach at Wazoo and the O-line coach at Mississippi State. We talked to Mason on the radio Saturday morning. Shout out to everybody who's been listening to The Hype with Chris and Mike on Saturdays on KJR. But I talked to Mason on Friday, an extended conversation. At that point, they had only drafted Charles. But we talked a little bit about Abe, too, because I told him I went to Wazoo. And one thing he mentioned to me is that it's something I've kind of believed over the years, and it's something I mentioned on the radio, and I really kind of saw firsthand with a guy like DK Metcalf. And here's what I mean. Like, DK only ran a few routes at Ole Miss. He didn't have to run that many. He only played like 5 games his final year, too, because he broke his neck. People forget that. Duke broke his neck, like kickoff. That's why he'll never do kickoff again. But he only played 5 games, only ran, I don't know, slants, hitches, and goes. He didn't have to run much because it was the SEC. He was 6'4". He was a beast, and he didn't really need to run that much. And they had A.J. Brown as well. So if you look at some of the scouting reports on DK, they're like, oh, well, this guy can't really run routes. And that was really the thing. Like one of the most one of the posts I've got the most engagement on Twitter is when I tweeted just DK running a hitch. All I said was DK runner of routes. That was the whole caption. And boy, the discourse in there was just bananas. It's got like 1 million views or something like that with like 3,000 comments or something like that. And that was his narrative. I think we had Doug Farrar on that year to talk about it. Doug Farrar wrote a piece about it. It was like, no, DK can run routes. And you could see it at training camp but by the time he had got to training camp, DK had hired a receivers coach. I forget the guy's name, but I think he's on the Arizona Cardinals staff. Hired that guy, worked with him all offseason before the draft, refined those skills. And by the time he got to the Seahawks, like, oh, actually, he could run those routes. And on top of that, he already was running them in practice. They just didn't need to run them at Ole Miss because all he needed to do was run straight to get open out there in the SEC because he was DK freaking Metcalf. And that brings me back to these O-line guys who didn't do a lot of run blocking. And I was talking to Mason. He's like Mike, or he might have called me Michael. I can't remember. Doesn't matter. He was just like, they can both run block. We just didn't need to do it. We could move the ball, passing it every time, which is what they did in both schools. They can run block. I've seen them do it. And then he was even like, he gave me the example when the Giants worked out Charles Cross. The Giants had picks 5 and 7, so they were considering him. They wanted Charles to block from a 3-point stance, like having your one hand in the ground. And Charles looked at Mason and was like, oh, I know how to do this. Like, this ain't even nothing new, because he had already done it. He just wasn't doing it a lot on tape. It doesn't mean he couldn't do it. Same thing with DK in those routes. Just because it wasn't on his game film doesn't mean the boy can't do it. And in the case of Charles and Abe, they've hired pre-draft coaches. I don't know who their coaches are, but they've hired guys and they've worked on it. Abe worked on blocking from the left side and the right side and blocking out of a 3-point stance. Charles has worked on blocking from the left side and the right side and out of a 3-point stance. So I bet you, even though it wasn't on tape, by the time these guys get to rookie minicamp, which will be this weekend, they're going to look way more comfortable, or they're going to look so smooth blocking out of those stances than they maybe showed on tape or even at the Senior Bowl. I bet you, I think Abe blocked out a 3-point stance at the Senior Bowl, because that's kind of how things go these days. These agents and these scouts, and there's so many private trainers everywhere that you can work on your weaknesses before the team even drafts you. You can be a guy who played a bunch of zone technique and then just hire some DB coach in Atlanta, do nothing but press man for 3 months. So by the time the Jets draft you, you're looking like Richard Sherman. You can do. Now you still need the game reps, but you get my point. So talking to Mason Miller, kind of breaking down what he's seen from both of them. Now he has no reason but to talk them up, of course. So you got to take that with a little bit of grain of salt, but also the man's O-line kind of default to his, kind of expertise there. I don't know, while taking into consideration some stuff from the homie Ray Roberts as well, who liked both picks. He texted me after both picks, like I like both of those. So I just thought that even if that's the weakness on their boards, like, man, Pete Carroll will tell you, when you're talking about drafting a tackle, you need somebody who, hey, look, man, it's 3rd and 8. Can you hold your own and not end up on your ass or draw a holding penalty, like, because we need to move the rock, and that's pass blocking. Can you do that? Can you handle it? We're playing the Rams. On one side, they've got who's some of the Rams edge rushers? Why can't I think right now? Well, let's actually give me a team. Give me a team that's got two guys who really
the
bring
Steelers. There you go.
They don't play the Steelers this year. Let me think of it.
So now you're gonna tell me that a team they played this year. Let's think. Okay, how about the Cardinals?
All right, so dang, I don't know who their edge rushers are either. This example,
they just gave up their best one, so
I know this example is really falling on itself. But either way, doesn't matter. It's 3rd and 9. We're playing the Rams. On one side, they got Leonard Floyd. The other side, they've got somebody. Doesn't matter. Maybe they're playing Aaron Donald as a 5 technique on this snap. Like, we need to move the ball. Can you guys hold up? And that matters. That right there. I think one more thing on the tackle guys, and this goes for the whole draft in general. A really cool thing that Shil Kapadia uses, mostly with first-round picks, but I think it can apply at other positions specifically, is a 2-minute rule. Chris, have you seen this from Shil Kapadia at The Athletic when he talks about the 2-minute rule in some of his stories?
Go through it again. I probably have spent a minute though.
So the 2-minute rule, I think he applies it mostly to the first round. Is like, all right, you ask yourself as a team, will this guy be on the field during a 2-minute drill when we're trying to win the game?
Yep.
I think it's an excellent way to frame positional value. Again, mostly in the first round, but like I think when you're talking about traits for guys too, you can apply it there. Like the thing he does best, can that help us when the game is on the line? Right? Like that's what I really think is key with the tackle picks. Like, all right, we're down 4, whatever, we're down 7. You're going to be on the field as a lineman. Are you good at the thing we need you to be great at right now? And that's pass protect. And I think that's where they've gone wrong with some of their other picks. And I think that you can look at a running back that way, defensive tackles that way, edge rushers that way, DBs, whatever. Like, are you good when the game is on the line, 2 minutes left? Can you be great right now? Actually, will you even be on the field?
Yeah, that's a bigger question.
That's one. And then that's really important when you're talking about inside linebackers. Are you talking about guys whose greatest skill is their ability to stop the run? Well, damn, that's nice. But it's like, all right, it's a 2-minute drill. We're trying to get off the field here. Or we're trying to preserve a win so we can go to the Super Bowl or something like that. Can you cover? Can you recognize? Can you run up a seam? Can you follow that tight end? Can you get that PBU to help us? So that's another thing. But with the 2 tackle prospects, that's what I really like. Run blocking aside, I trust the coaches to teach them that.
There you go.
I do. And I don't think you have to work too hard to teach them that because of how athletic those guys both are. But when if the goal was, we can teach them to pass block, I'd be like, oh shit. I'd be like, no, you not. No, you not. That's why I wasn't a big fan of like the Trevor Penning pick from Northern Iowa. Like I thought they would take him, but didn't want them to. Like we'll see what happens with him. I think he's in New Orleans. But I don't want your greatest strength if you in the first round as a tackle to be that you run block. Nah. 2-minute rule, baby. Shout out to Shield on that one. Chris, I like the alignment the Seahawks took, man. What year is it?
It's 2022. Things are phase 1 looks good. We'll start there. You did mention, can the DB get pass breakups? Can get the defense off the field? And we might as well switch things. We talked a little bit of offense and who the Seahawks drafted offensively, and that was their 2 tackles. You have Charles Cross, and then you go and get Abe Lucas. So let's actually go defense and look at the cornerback room because they took Coby Bryant, shout out to the Mamba, and Tariq Woolen. Now, when you look at the cornerback situation, DJ Reed, he wanted to get the bag. He did get the bag. He ended up going to the Jets. I think, what was it?
I think he ended up getting about 11 a year on a 3-year
deal. Yeah, that sounds about right. So DJ went to the Jets, and the Seahawks they definitely needed someone to come in that could compete for a starting position, and that would definitely be Coby Bryant, who I think is in the mix right now with Sidney Jones, who he was up and down last season, but he's going to get some reps this offseason or during training camp and rookie mini camp. He's got an opportunity to be a starter. With that being said, Coby Bryant, Tariq Woolen, Mike, what are your takes on these 2 guys that have been drafted? Do you see either one of them making the field?
Yeah, I think I see Coby for sure. I think one thing to note is that there are 2 very different players. I'll start with Coby. Coby's a little shorter. I think Coby's like 6'1". Arms are a little shorter than you would see on a Seahawks corner. I want to say they're about 30 and some change, maybe like 30. Pete's come off the 32-inch thing with, thank God. I think we talked about that last year.
When they took Trey.
I've been waiting so long for him to do that. You know, it's just like, dude, you're cutting off. It's the same thing I mentioned about like having women in your draft room, and it's like you're cutting off so many prospects.
Right.
It's like if you only want men in your draft room or on your team or in your organization, whatever your organization is, you're just cutting off half the population that could potentially help you. You know, like you're just cutting off so many potential allies in that regard. Same thing. It's like, all right, only people on our board are going to have 32-inch arms. Well, that you're probably cutting off half the damn prospects, guys who can legitimately cover.
You're making your list harder.
And here's the other thing that I needed them to realize about that too. It's like after you guys won the Super Bowl, you're not the only team looking for those long-armed corners at this point anymore. So like you're cutting your prospect size down, and everyone else is looking for that same thing. So it makes it even harder to find the dudes. Ain't no Shermans slipping to the 5th round no more. No. Right? That's just not how it works because of what you guys did in the mid 2010s or whatever. So Coby's a little shorter than Tariq. Tariq's 6'4". Arms are much shorter than Tariq's. I think Tariq's 34-inch arms at his pro day, which is ridiculous. That's real long. That's like the type of guy stand up straight and touch his knee without bending type of arm length. That's pretty crazy. I don't know what his wingspan is, but I imagine it's like ridiculously long. The thing with Coby is, and from talking to people who have worked with him at Cincinnati and have watched him, like he's just really sound. Like he just knows ball and knows how to get to the ball before the play even develops. In that regard, he does kind of remind me of like a Sherm in that way, because that was Sherm's greatest strength, and that's what he'll tell you. Like plenty of guys get out there and say, man, I want to get Sherm, and he ran my route for me, or he knew what was coming and things like that. So Coby, if you look at a lot of the plays or some of the biggest plays he had, some of his pick sixes or big interceptions, like they came as a result of knowing what's coming.
Yeah.
Knowing that he could cheat this way, or like I know one play, maybe we could find it. It's from 2020. I think they're playing like South Florida or something, and Coby's in the red zone, and he's guarding the furthest outside receiver. So to get real football nerdy, that's the number 1 receiver. The number 3 receiver to his side is like in the slot. I think they're in the red zone. The number 3 receiver runs a corner route, which means he comes up and breaks towards the back corner of the end zone. So what Coby does is he comes off of his guy and sinks underneath the corner route and picks it. Well, because he kind of knew how they were going to attack that based on the formation, like stuff like that. That's instincts and film study preparation. Like from talking to people, and like I got that example from someone who has worked with him, like that type of stuff. That tells me you ready. Now the physical stuff he didn't test super well. I think if you look at his relative athletic score, it was pretty.
He ran a 4.5. Nothing off the charts.
Yeah. Didn't a lot of the stuff didn't test well. I don't think even the agility stuff or anything. Like he just was not a tester. Like, and that can be worrisome. That's probably why he fell, to be honest. Like some teams probably had some way to like quantify the type of players they want, and we're just like, you know what, this kid, he didn't meet the testing thresholds for us. We're not going to take him. On his relative athletic score, he was 5.6 out of 10, which is not great.
That's
like
bad.
This is it's definitely not good. But what Seattle did is they said, hey, we'll take the tape over testing.
Yeah. The eye test is key.
Yeah, and that's fine. I'm cool with that sometimes. Sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the player, depends on the pick, depends on what the film did show you. I like the thought process there.
I'm with it. I'm also, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm definitely on the standpoint of liking that process there. The concern that I know Dane pointed out was his twitchiness. And in this division with the NFC West, with all these, Hollywood Brown, who is twitchy as they come, Rondale Moore with the Cardinals, hell, even Cooper Kupp, to set the speed, as you like to call him, he's very twitchy. He's going to have to be able to react and recover, which that's one of his weaknesses. And hopefully this new defensive coordinator, this defensive staff that they brought in for the Seahawks, they can assist him with that, and he can become better at it that way when he's in the game, because I think he's going to get some reps against in-game situations unless they get another corner or Artie Burns turns out to be the next guy. I think he's going to have to be ready, because he definitely showed it. He had 14 passes defense with Cincinnati, and that was because, his teammate Sauce Gardner was over there. They're just not going to throw his way. So they're like, you know what, we'll pick on you, Coby, and it didn't work out because I think he had, 3 interceptions as well. I know he had 4 the year previous, so he's definitely someone that can make plays, but he's going to have to do it at the next level.
Yeah, he had number 2 in school history in passes defense for a career, 45, which is pretty crazy. Like, he was a 4-year starter too. That's another thing. You know, the guy was he was a starter for a long time, played a lot of ball, got a lot of reps, got a lot of targets because, like you mentioned, nobody wanted to throw at Sauce, and they knew that too. Like, he took that challenge personally. Because there's something to that as like an ego thing where it's just like, hey, Coby, they're gonna throw at you a lot because they don't think you're as good as the other guy, which he might not be, but that's still insulting to some degree to be like, wait, you don't think you can test him? Would you think you can test me? Ah, hell no. And that was kind of how he approached that. Again, this is according to people I talked to that worked with him. So, I mean, that's another mindset thing that I liked. He seemed just like an overall more polished player, and John Schneider mentioned that too. He called Coby more buttoned up, than Tariq. Than Tariq, excuse me. So I think that's the one big difference between the two. So, like, to compare that to Tariq, what did John Schneider say after he told me that buttoned up thing? He was like, Tariq's just an athletic freak. What's his nickname? Is it Reek the Freak?
Yeah, you got it.
Tariq the Freak.
Yeah, Reek the Freak. You're right.
And that's because the kid is 6'4", ran 4.26 with 34-inch arms. That is nuts. Yeah, that is. And at the Senior Bowl, they wear the little GPS tracker things that show how fast they go. Tariq broke the record, for how fast the guy ran with those on. I think it was 22.4 miles an hour. So, like, that's why this guy got drafted. Not because he's a former receiver and he was in the 5th round and he's big like Richard Sherman. If anything, Coby is more like Sherman Tariq. Tariq has the physical like background and some Sherm-ish things, but for one, ain't but one Richard Sherman. So we should stop that right here. There's only one.
Yeah.
The football gods did not make two. They used all the little juice they had. They did the little Salt Bay thing with the arm, and they only made one Richard Sherman. They only made one Doug Baldwin. Every little shifty dude is not Doug. All right, let's get that out there now. And that's the case with a lot of those Legion of Boom dudes. They're just one of one. That's what made that era so special. Ain't but one Cam Chancellor. We'll never see another Cam because of how the rules are, and just because of Cam was a freaking psychopath, on the football field. So I want to keep that in mind with as we talk about these guys. But with Tariq, it's just raw. That kid's just raw. Like you talked, did we talk to Deontay Lee about him?
We did, yes. And if I'm not mistaken, that's what he mentioned. He has the athletic gifts, but he also needs to learn how to play coverages. He's just naturally gifted, and now these natural gifts have to be toned and then applied when it comes to covering, because that is something that he needs to definitely work on. And hopefully, as I mentioned with Coby, he has to work on some things. Same with Tariq. Even though Coby is a better coverage defender, he doesn't have the 4.2 speed. He is able to read and do things better than Tariq can, which is why Tariq is where he's at, where he was drafted, where he was picked, because of his ability to run fast. He's really good. He can get up the field quickly. Not going to give up too many deep balls. I mean, hell, if they said, hey, we're just going to run streaks on this side, Tariq probably have that covered pretty well, as long as he turns his head. But that's a whole other discussion for a different day.
That's technique, though, on top of just being fast.
So my guess is that might be a problem for him, just getting, the simple – something I tweet often when I'm watching games of how many times DBs just don't look for the ball when they see the receiver's eyes getting big and their heads are turned. That's something you got to work on. They do it in practice all the time in drills, but now you just got to apply that in the game. But Tariq is definitely someone that he's going to be working harder in the offseason just to get to the next level where he can participate and be effective, because that 4.26 speed definitely could be used as a corner for sure.
Yeah, I definitely want to just highlight the differences between the two players, because once you see like two edge guys, two tackles, two corners, they went full Noah's Ark this draft. We got a little two of everything, like two receivers. Actually, yeah, they got two of everything but running back. Hell, if they had a 10th pick, they probably would have took another
running back.
And so, but they're different. Abe's different than Charles. Coby is different than Tariq in ways that I consider to be very notable. Like Pete Carroll talked about Tariq and was like, we're going to get him on the line of scrimmage, and we're going to see if that's just him. He's just nasty up there, which makes sense because of the long arms. But, like, that still requires a lot of technique, a lot of refining some skills, because one thing he'll learn in training camp once he matches up with, guys like DK, guys like Tyler on the outside. If you got bad feet, you got bad eyes, you're over aggressive with your hands, you will get torched. It doesn't matter how fast you can run. So I just think that he's a bit more of a raw prospect who can be good. Like the ceiling on him is probably ridiculous, because of the physical stuff. You combine the physical stuff with the ability to learn to really learn the position, because he played receiver for 2 years in college. The ceiling is probably crazy high on him.
Greatest of all time.
I don't know about all that.
Well, just based on his traits, a 4.26 that can play corner. If he gets everything perfectly aligned.
Yeah, I don't know if it's greatest all time. It's like, that's a lot. But I think just a really good player is, whereas like Coby probably come in right now like Trey Brown did and like, oh, you ready to roll? To our system and you can go out there and go, because Trey was another guy who just had a lot of big moments in college, just like Coby. I like both of them. I've mocked both of them to the Seahawks for different reasons. But when you're talking about like, all right, Mike, what's this guy and what's this guy? Like, I would expect Coby to probably sneak into the starting lineup much faster. And if Tariq does get into the lineup, it probably because a lot of injury. This is year one. If he gets into the lineup in year one, probably because of injuries, or he would take over like a Ryan Neal type of role where, all right, we're going to put 6 DBs on the field. We need guys who can just play man, because we're going to go cover one, with Quandre over the top. We're going to blitz Jamal, so like we need more guys who can cover. Maybe bring a Tariq in. That's what I anticipate there. But both guys I like. I just wanted to separate, the difference between the two, because it's not just, they took 2 corners. They took 2 very different style corners.
Now, my question is, Mike, do you want to bounce back to the offense, or do you want to stay on the defensive side and talk edge rushers here?
I want to talk about the Kenneth Walker pick.
Well, then let's go ahead and dive into Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm going to get into this discussion as long as this guy's on the team. I feel like, just because, let me start with this. Kenneth Walker III is a monster. Like, that dude, you watch him. I watched him in college, actually, quite a bit, just because I remember he had one game where he had like a really big run. I was like, wow, that guy's really good. And then he had another game where he had like 5 touchdowns or something like that. Might have been against Michigan. And I just remember thinking, God damn, this kid is good. Like, he probably won't be a Seahawk. Like, I was thinking he'd probably be like a 1st round pick. Like, I thought he might be the only running back in the 1st round this year, because that's how good I thought he was. And it just seemed like Jesus Christ, nobody could tackle him. So that's where I was on him. Yeah, he's just a beast. He's just a monster. He had like 1,100 yards after contact in college.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
What? That is crazy. He averaged something like, I don't know. He had his yards after contact per rush were just kind of crazy. So I really liked that part of his game. I am not against Kenneth Walker III, the player. I just think that his selection gives us a window into running back value, because he is the 41st pick. And when you use the word value, and I tweeted this about Jordan Brooks too, because it's a very interesting discussion in that way. Like, everyone assigns a pick's worth differently. Like, what is a pick worth? Like I just said about the 1st overall pick, I want a potential Hall of Famer there. That's what I want. Ideally, that's what I want. If nothing else, I want a guy who's going to be a multi-time All-Pro.
Yeah,
at that position. That's what I want. At least like twice. By the end of your rookie deal. Once by the end of your rookie deal, maybe a couple more times after that, because I have really high expectations for a pick there, especially since those guys ain't that cheap. And the 1st overall pick's contract is fully guaranteed. I think, like, it's a lot of money I'm spending on you too, on top of using high draft capital. So, and it drops as you drop into the round in terms of what that pick should do, how that pick should perform. And there's ways to test that. You can use Pro Football Reference's approximate value thing. You can use WAR, wins above replacement, like a baseball-ish type of stat. But PFF has found a way to quantify it with football players as well. It's inexact science, but it's semi-helpful. Like for pick 27 with Jordan Brooks or Rashad Penny, I want a Pro Bowl out of them on their rookie deal. I do. That is what I want from them. At minimum, I want you to be an above-average player at your position and give me a Pro Bowl while you're on your rookie deal. That is what I want from the 27th pick. It really doesn't even matter what position you are at that point. That's just what I want. You are a 1st-round pick, supposedly a 27th best player in the draft. I want you to do that. right? The 41st pick, if you're going to be a running back, I need you to be like the best back in the league because of how relative running back skill is from the first round to like the fourth round. You can legit find a starting caliber running back, like a beast in the fifth round.
Yeah.
Again, it's just one of those positions where you can just find guys back there. You can find guys undrafted. You can find guys in the seventh like Chris, or in the fifth like Aaron Jones, or in the third round even. Third round is probably the sweet spot for where I'd want to take a running back if I was running a team. I just think when you're talking about pick 41, like what the 41st pick is worth and what it's capable of producing, I just think that if you go, I just don't see the value in going running back there because of where you can get comparable talent. Like, how much different is, I'm trying to think of a running back that went later. Like, for example, I mocked Abram Smith, running back from Baylor. I don't even think he got drafted, but I mocked him to the Seahawks with like a fourth round pick. Same thing with like Kyren Williams from Notre Dame, who I think went to the Niners or the Rams, I think, sometime on day 3. In terms of relative to their costs and how they're going to produce in the league, I don't see a big jump there. As great as like a guy like Kenneth is, he's probably going to be a monster. They're probably going to be monsters on day 3 too. I guess that's the way I should say this. Yes, he's a monster. There also are going to be other monsters on day 3, I think, because of also what we know about the impact that run blocking has on how good a given running back is. You can be, well, I don't want to say you can be Barry Sanders because you can't, but Barry Sanders is the exception. It doesn't matter what his line was doing. We talked to Ray about that a little bit.
He different.
He didn't need them. he didn't need. He was going to make all 11 guys miss and go score. That's just not the case. Everybody not Barry. You can be as good as Alvin Kamara is, as good as Aaron Jones or Dalvin Cook or Joe Mixon, if your line will largely determine how great you are. So if you're trying to improve your run game, draft a good lineman more than it's like, oh, take a running back high. So because of where you can get running backs and the relationship between run blocking and running back success, I just didn't like the value there. People keep getting caught up on the player. Everyone keeps tweeting me his highlights and how good he is. I'm like, I know, guys, I can Google the same stats y'all got. I got the same access to YouTube. I got Wi-Fi as well. Not the point. The point is that you take someone 41 when you have all these other needs too. That
center.
I just think that center, they needed a tackle at the time, they needed a corner at the time. Remember, at the time they needed these guys. So I just think that they got lucky later, but they couldn't have guaranteed that. That would have been bad process. So I just think that it's a value thing. He's going to be good, I think. He's probably, honestly, he might be the best running back on the team already.
Well, yeah, Dane Brugler has him number 1 on the draft board for running backs. He's number 1. So I think maybe the Seahawks were thinking he wouldn't last the end of the second round. And I know your point is, but Chris, you could find someone else in 4th or 5th.
Right.
The Seahawks probably didn't want to risk that because they had who they wanted in the 5th round. Like, they got their guys. Like, those are the guys we want in the 5th round no matter what. And they're probably thinking, if we don't take Kenneth, some team is going to get that guy. And they know how good he is, which I guess is still not your point because
right. My point is not that you needed to get Kenneth. My point is that, like,
you can get the same value with another guy. But I think maybe in the Seahawks head, they were like, no, we can't get this value again. And that's maybe a deep dive that we need to do, a deeper look. And maybe for another episode, we can actually say, okay, here's all the other running backs. This is what Kenneth did. This is what these guys did. Okay, the Seahawks had a point. The value is a little different. Could this guy potentially reach that? Maybe, maybe not. But ultimately, the Seahawks maybe looked at it as like, yo, we can't let this guy go. And if we do, that's going to screw up what we have planned in the 5th round. Because in the 5th round, they were able to hit and grab. Who did they get in the 5th round again? I'm drawing a blank. They got Tariq Smith, defensive end out of Ohio State, and Tariq Woolen. Yeah. So maybe not taking Tariq in the 5th round and they can get another running back. So that's maybe something they thought of. Again, I wasn't obviously in the draft room. I don't know what led to the decision to take a running back, but I do think the future of Chris Carson came to mind. They still want to have a guy that's available because, as you mentioned earlier on the show, running backs, it's very challenging to play 17 games and stay available per se. And not to mention the postseason, which is if you win, that's another 4 games. You have a chance at a Super Bowl. All that being said, the Seahawks are like, yeah, we're taking this guy. And hopefully it pans out, and he is a superstar. But there is another part that, well, yeah, you can still find that value, with, I guess, a Rashad White out of Arizona State, 5th round. I don't know where he ended up going, but there are other guys that you could potentially take later in the round. So I'll just be devil's advocate here and say maybe that the Seahawks, they weren't letting him pass no matter what value you have on him. That's the guy they wanted, and they weren't going to screw around. They were going to make their quote unquote, let's get cute moment. Well, actually, not even get cute, because he was, what was he mocked? He was he was the best running back overall. He was set to go around 40, or excuse me, where was he supposed to go? Let me see.
Yeah, he was 40th on the big board, so it just depends on how you want to do it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a tough one there. I hear you though on the value part. I do understand that, because again, you could find someone similar traits, stats wise, and plug him in. But I think the Seahawks really were sold on what he can do after the contact, because I know he led all running backs after contact. The dude was the most physical running back in college football last year.
Yeah, I know why they took him. Yep. And I know why people are saying, oh, Mike, this is why we needed a running back. Well, yeah, you also needed a center. At the time, you also needed a tackle.
I will say that. They could have definitely got a center.
Yeah, so you need other things too. And I think the thing with value is people keep acting like we only apply it to running backs. There's
every position.
Value in every position. It's why people are applauding today the Ravens draft class, because it includes Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame, the safety, who might be the best player in this damn draft. Right, but he couldn't have gone number 1. You know why? Because people don't take safeties that high. Yeah. That's all it is. It's a positional thing, right? It's the same thing with like a kicker or a punter, right? That punter from San Diego State might be just like in terms of just talent, might be like a top 50 player in this draft. Like that, his nickname is like the punt god. At least I think he's from San Diego State. But you're not going to take him with the 50th pick, are you? No, because he's a freaking punter. And everyone understands that. Like we all understand that. No one would argue that. You can make it's not as extreme with running backs, but people understand the value thing. It's especially people in Seattle. You tell people in Seattle they traded 2 first-round picks for a safety. They're all upset. Tell them they traded 2 first-round picks for an edge rusher. That's like TJ Watt or something like that. You'd be like, oh no, that makes sense because the position matters. Yeah, or like a left tackle like Tunsil or Jalen Ramsey. Why are people more upset about the Jamal thing than like the Bears trading 2 first-round picks for Khalil Mack?
Yeah.
Because it's a positional value thing. Everyone already understands it. They just see Kenneth Walker, the third highlights and be like, oh, well, screw that. Well, no. Let's focus on the process here. Like ignore the YouTube highlights for a second there. Ignore the numbers. Like it's just a positional value thing. Everyone gets that. It's weird that the pushback is from people who understand that, at least to me. They understand that. It just seems like to just be ignoring it because they like the player, which is fine, I guess. But don't tell me that I'm tripping. Like when you're the same person mad that they traded 2 firsts for a safety.
No, why Mike, you're not tripping. You're just pointing out the obvious, and we're ignoring the obvious.
Yeah, we're ignoring an argument that we make in Seattle with other spots. No one, you'd be mad as hell if the Seahawks took a center with the 9th pick. Even if this Tyler Linbaum dude was the best lineman in the draft. Be like, well, that's bad value. They could have got him later. That's what everybody would be saying right now if they did that, because there's a value tied to the center position. Like the same exact thing with running backs. It's the same exact thing. I don't know why people are ignoring that, because they're telling me how good any given running back was in college. They're all good in college. That's why they get drafted. Duh. Like especially
I'm not breaking news here, peeps.
Yeah, so I think 2 running backs to watch, and or maybe I'll give you 3. 1 on day 2, 1 on day 3, and then an undrafted guy. Abram Smith at Baylor, another guy I liked. I think he went undrafted. Rashad White, who I think you mentioned, I think he went 91 to the Bucks.
Okay, so there's someone that the Seahawks probably, if they wanted to shake things up, they could have waited, of course, but whatever.
Yeah, and then another guy I really liked was Tyler Alger. I think that's how you say his name. The kid from BYU who just killed my Cougs this year. He was nasty. Just could not bring that dude down. I think he went in the 5th round. And so it's like guys like that. A guy like Tyler, who I think I had like a 3rd round projection on, so that other people ended up going in the 5th, right? Because that's where you can get good running backs. I think Hassan Haskins went to the Titans. I want to say a kid from Michigan. I think he went later. So that's my thing. It's like we already understand positional value around here. We do. We get it. We've been arguing it for years around here. It's why you guys all hate the Jamal trade. There's at least one reason. one reason why you guys all hate it. So if you understand positional value there, don't ignore it when we're talking about running backs or receivers or whatever, right? It's you can't just ignore that part because you like the guy.
Yeah.
So I think that's what the Seahawks did with the Jamal thing. They were like, we're probably overpaying a little bit here, but fuck it.
We like it.
Yeah,
we like him. Excuse me.
That's exactly what they did. That's exactly what they did, you know? And I understand that too, even though if I wouldn't have given up all that capital. But the point is, like, when you're judging a process, that is not some, you can be critical in that regard. So, like I said, if you're a fantasy football player, shoot, Kenneth might be your guy. Kenneth might be the dude you're like, I might take him in the third round because Pete Carroll can run the ball a lot, and this dude might be that dude from the jump because he's nasty. I mean, you look at his college highlights, they look like a lot of the same stuff Rashad Penny was doing with the zone run, cut back, hitting the lane, boom, going. Like he's nasty like that. And he's like Rashad too, I think, in that like he doesn't run through people that often. He just makes them miss, which is different. Like Chris Carson will run through somebody, whereas Rashad, like, he can do that, but his thing largely is just like, okay, now I'm gone. Like that's his thing. Stick it on the ground, kind of go. So I like the player. It's a value thing. That's all. I think people they're conflating the two. When I say, oh, that pick was a little bit of a reach, they're like, what do you mean, Mike? I'm like, well, this is what I mean. It's the same thing. It's that it took a punter that high too, or a long snapper. Now, again, it's not as extreme there, but I think my example with Kyle Hamilton or even a center with number 9 overall it illustrates what I'm saying. There's just certain positions you take at certain spots. I don't know the golden spot to take a running back. I think Mike Sando, a colleague at The Athletic, he asked me that. And I think that is a good question. I think it depends on what else you need as a team. But, like, I would probably just ballpark it around pick 100 and give or take from there. I would give or take about 25 spots in either direction as, like, the ballpark, depending on what your team needs, right? And how many picks you have, too. So I think that all factors in. But I like the player. I just think that everyone understands positional value. They are just choosing to ignore it right now because of how good Kenneth is. And it's like I get both sides of it, but, like, focus on the value part. And then when rookie camp comes, we can all just kind of gush over.
That's fair.
Right now, we're talking process. That's different than just, is this a good player?
Well, let's flip it again and go to the defensive side of things because the Seahawks didn't reach there. They got the value they needed. They needed pass rush because right now you look at it, Darrell Taylor's the Seahawks' leading pass rusher at 6.5 sacks based off last season. Carlos Dunlap, he's out of there. He's not returning. Doesn't appear he will be. So the Seahawks were like, yeah, we need someone that can come in and get to the quarterback. And that would be Boye Mafe. Look at that. I said it right. He had, 7 sacks last season. He is someone that can, I think he's a hybrid. He can do a little bit of both. And then Tariq Smith, another guy the Seahawks went and drafted. Mike, thoughts on these two defensive edge rushers coming in that are going to be, as the Seahawks are slowly and surely transitioning into a more 3-4 defense here and there. How are you liking these two picks?
Yeah, they're full on 3-4 now, and that's why it was so easy to mock some of these guys to the Seahawks because I just liked guys who, on day 1 and 2, I wanted guys who had that 2-point stance in their background with some dropping ability too. Because in the first 2 rounds, I really wanted like starters. And I don't know if Boye will be that right away just because they have Uchenna and Wasu and Darrell Taylor, who are, I think they're both 25. It's like you got 2 25-year-old edge rushers who have been productive for at least 1 year each. Uchenna for a little bit longer than Darrell, but has some production in that scheme because they were running something similar with the Chargers. Darrell has obviously played in the scheme, at least a version of Seattle scheme already. So you got 2 25-year-old guys right in their physical primes. Boom. Like, I think it's going to be hard. It would be hard if they even took, I think, like Kayvon Thibodeau to jump in right away and start, just because I think the 2 guys they have are really solid there and should actually bookend their D-line pretty well, actually, on first and second downs and on third down when they come at the passer. So I think by day 2, if you couldn't get like a starter, because of those 2 already being there, that you can have like a really good just pass rush guy. Like, still want the 2-point stance, like the stand-up rusher in their background, because I'm just tired of seeing guys who can do the stand-up thing but aren't like the best at it, getting those prime reps. And I just think, like, even that's why Carlos Dunlap isn't here anymore. That's why Benson Mayowa. It's like, guys, that's not why rushing from a stand-up position and stuff like that is not why Benson and Carlos lasted in the league 10 plus years. They can do it, but that's not what they hang their hat on. Whereas I think that if you're going to draft some guys, I think they should just be a better fit. And that's what I liked Boye there. I think the only reason I never mocked Boye to the Seahawks was because I just always thought he'd be a first-round pick. So I just didn't think he'd last to the second round. And he lasted, I don't know, 6 picks into the second round. So he was like borderline there. There was I bet you that he's only not a first-round pick because of that big old run on receivers. How many receivers got taken on day one? Like 8?
8 or 9.
It was a huge run, and they just started once Drake London went first. I think they just started flying off the board. It was like Drake London, I think like Garrett Wilson went 2 spots after, then Olave went right after that, and then boom, it just took off after that. Then you started seeing teams trading away their receivers for picks to take receivers. It got kind of crazy there. That's probably why Boye kind of fell to them, quote unquote fell. But I think with Boye, I think because he has that like outside linebacker-ish feel to him, is probably going to be the more likely guy to impact the team right away. Whereas Tariq even said it after the draft. He was like, yeah, we were 4-3 at Ohio State. He was like, we got some reps dropping, kind of what I mentioned about the linemen earlier. They got the reps in practice because their coach was like, look, at Ohio State, we train pros. They want you guys to be a little good at everything because this we're going to ask of you on the pros. But he just didn't have the game reps. That's not to say he can't do it. Can't like be a dropper, can't be a 3-4 edge guy. There's a reason I still mocked him to the Seahawks, despite the fact that they were, 4 down front at Ohio State, because I think he can do it. But I think to put it in perspective for people that follow the Seahawks and have already watched the team, it's the difference between a Darrell Taylor and an Alton Robinson for me.
Yeah.
Darrell at Tennessee was already comfortable being a dropper, covering the flat, rushing from hand in the ground, 2-point, whatever. He was able to do both because he did it at Tennessee. He kicked ass at it. Seahawks traded up to get him. All made sense. Alton can do that stuff, but Syracuse, it was more like put your hand in the ground and go kill somebody, or kill the quarterback, to be specific. So like that's the difference. They both are going to be asked to do it, just like Boye and Tariq are going to be asked to be essentially outside linebackers. It's just a matter of what you really hang your hat on. And I think that's why one guy went in the second round and another guy went 100 picks later.
Yeah.
Because of the difference between the two. So it's very similar with the tackles. They're 2 different type of tackles. Well, the tackles are kind of similar, but the corners are very different. The receivers are different. Bo Melton is 5'9" or something, 5'11", 193 pounds, where the Tariq Young is like 6'4", 220. He's huge. Different guys. The corners, like we talked about, are different skill sets. Different guys have different paths to making the starting lineup. The edge rushers are the same way. Boye has a chance to get in there right away. Can defend the run. Can be a hybrid, like outside linebacker, rusher. Has the pass rush skills. Boom. Tariq has some of the same stuff, but not as refined at doing what they're going to ask him to do. And that's why he's a 5th-round pick versus Boye being a 2nd-round pick. Same thing with Darrell and Alton. Wasn't one of them a 5th-round pick and one of them a 2nd-round pick? Yeah. Alton was a 5th-round pick and Darrell was a 2nd. Yeah. So I think, but look at Alton, right? Alton was able to, be productive getting to the passer. But if you notice, that's kind of all they're asking Alton to do.
Yeah, they're making that transition. Hey, we just need you to rush the passer because, as you pointed out, you didn't do much of that in college where you're dropping into coverage. So you know what? We can make it work. We'll figure it out. And you also talked about just his speed. Well, not really, but he ran 4.5. Boye.
Who's speed?
Boye. 4.5.
Oh, yeah, he tested really well. He's an athlete.
So I'm thinking, when they play the Cardinals 2 times a year, you know what you can do? You can probably put him in a spy position, have him chase him around. That's something that's a strength, running around, scrambling, getting after scrambling quarterbacks. I know you only have one in the division now, but hell, you play Denver Broncos. That's an opportunity to show your speed. So on obvious passing downs, I expect him to make that leap and be a guy that they can rely on to run around and chase these quarterbacks that are able to scramble because of his strengths, which is running. He's athletic sideline to sideline, still some weaknesses, of course, with coverage downfield, but that's something this defense is going to work with him on. What about Tyreke Smith, man?
I think one more thing on Boye, it's not even necessarily no one's chasing down Kyler Murray.
No, just keep him in front of you, like we saw.
So the play that you want to see Boye and Tariq make is I think it's I want to say it's 2019. I want to say it's Kyler's rookie year.
KJ, right?
Week 4. No. Week 4. It's Rasheem Green. Kyler tries to break contain, and Rasheem just squares his feet, squares his shoulders, keeps him in front of him. I think Kyler ends up just going down on his own. And it was just like, wow, Rasheem's athletic as hell. And he's like a 4-3 end type of guy. And he was able to just square up and make sure Kyler didn't run around him or shake him. That's what you want from these edge guys.
Exactly.
Stay sound. So, I don't even need – because, like, Shaquem was more like a guy that tried to use, like, sideline to sideline, like a spy.
But this guy's way bigger, though. That's the advantage there. Shaquem was undersized.
Yeah, but he was faster than all these guys, too.
Like, you're on a 4-3-8.
To do, the sideline to sideline thing. Like, I can stick you in the middle and you just follow. Whereas, like, with these edge guys, I just want you to just set it and just keep contained. And that does take some practicing, because, like, there are – even if you're not, like, a super fast quarterback like Kyler, like there are just other guys who can, even a Patrick Mahomes or like a Russell, who all they got to do one little shake move and a defensive end could be out of position. Even an Aaron Rodgers who moves good enough to do that. Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, like they're, even a Carson Wentz, he's a good athlete in space. Mitch Trubisky in Pittsburgh, Mitch is like a runner too, believe it or not. These quarterbacks are so damn athletic, all of them pretty much these days. So I think that's the thing I want to see from both Tariq and Boye. That's the difference between when you look at the scheme fit for people who are just like, all right, Mike, what did like 4-3-3-4, like what's the difference? Right? What do these guys need to do differently besides dropping? That's the big thing. And so the KJ Wright play you mentioned, that's from 2020 of week 11, Thursday Night Football. That's when Kyler does try to break contain again. KJ squares up, make sure when Kyler does all that dancing, he doesn't fall for it. And I think Kyler just ends up falling to the ground again, because Kyler actually protects himself pretty well for a little guy who runs a lot. So I think those are 2 plays right there. The Rasheem one, maybe I can find the Rasheem one, and the KJ ones. I think people remember because I think it was like 4th down. Like those plays right there, you got to be able to do that on top of rushing the passer, or you just won't play. That's
fair enough.
That's pretty much it. It's like I think people who watch the Seahawks enough are like, man, Alden Robinson should play more, and it's like.
He can't do everything they need him to do, unfortunately.
He's not playing more, and Darrell Taylor is playing more, and some other guys are playing more. So, like, I like both picks. Again, 2 guys I would have mocked Boye there. Just didn't think he'd be there. I mocked Tariq there, like, for a reason. I think they both fit, quote unquote. One guy's going to take a little longer to fit than the other, kind of like Tariq and Coby Bryant. Same thing. 2 good picks, 2 different type of players, 2 guys who have different paths to making an impact. Whereas I think Tariq and Tariq maybe won't make a real hard impact till year 2. I think Boye and Coby have the potential to make year 1 impact.
Positive sign. Let's give a round of applause for that Seahawks draft. They did take some receivers as well. We won't leave them out. We'll just mention them. It was Bo Melton wide receiver out of Rutgers, and how you say his name again? Mr. Young out of Lenoir Rhine.
Yeah, Tariq Young.
That's who they got in the 7th round. So
Tariq, who's a big boy, man. I think he's 6'3" or 6'4", 220.
Yeah, he's not little.
No, he's looking DK in the eyes, man. And like, no, they probably wearing the same shirt size and everything. There was some big boys. I will say this about just the receiver thing real quick. They needed a slot receiver, which is what Bo is or can be. I really just think it's been important for a few years now. And I thought about that. I liked the D. Eskridge pick, which I probably said on last year's pod. I liked it, but it didn't answer the slot receiver problem. I thought it would move Tyler more into the slot, and it didn't. So that actually wasn't helpful. They really need a slot guy. Like Seahawks fans who've been following for a little bit, what John Ursua, what we thought he was going to be, they still need that.
Well, hell, they brought in Philip Dorsett, and he just didn't play the whole season.
He wasn't going to be that either. Like there's a twitchiness. And
we named
yards after catch too.
We named a bunch of guys that the Seahawks would probably look at during free agency. What was it, 2 years ago, last year? But
yeah, they need that twitchiness, like a Doug, John Ursua, some other guys in the league, Cooper Kupp, Cole Beasley has that same twitchiness. I'm trying to think, just more like really good. Like underneath guys, which are really helpful when you have those two high coverages. Like if you can just get underneath real fast, that's what you need. That's what Russell really needed. He needed it, and he needed somebody to throw it to. Like he needed both things. So I think Boye could potentially be that. Once you get in the 7th round, like unless these dudes kick ass in camp, it's really hard to like really have an impact. Like, so who knows? But I do think Boye specifically fills a need that they still have. Like, I know the coaching staff thinks that. Like, I know they think they need slot guys still. They like Freddie Swain. They like Penny Hart. Who I don't even know who else they got. But they like those guys too. Aaron
Cody
Fuller.
Thompson.
Yeah, Cody. They like these guys, but it's still a position of need. They still need it. And Boye is right in the mix with that. I think it's more likely that an Aaron Fuller makes the team than a Boye Melton. But like, again, that's another position of need. I can't get mad at you taking that in the 7th round. And Tariq, he's picked 233. The odds of him making the team are real low, but good for him. He gets that shot. And like I say, big as hell. Big as hell. Just to see how well he can move at that size. Because like Jazz Ferguson was big as hell too. People remember him from the 2019 undrafted class.
He had a great mock game.
Yeah, and I think he played well in a preseason game too. Just didn't move super well for a guy that big, which is why I don't think he's in the league anymore. Hopefully, Tariq kid moves a little better. Got hurt a lot, I think, or just had like an MCL sprain. This is why he only played a few games last year, but tested pretty well. So I am excited to see him. I like big receivers and feisty corners. Those are kind of like my two things that I like to see the most. So yeah, I like the whole class, man. I like the Kenneth Walker pick too. I liked 9 guys the Seahawks took. That's kind of crazy.
Well, it's time to get crazy. Let's see. Phase 1 underway, getting ready for phase 2. Next thing you know, we'll be doing training camp, and then it starts again. New season.
Yeah, and we're huge.
Yeah, I get my $100 too when Drew Lock get that first snap under center. Can't wait.
Last thing, real quick, because you mentioned the quarterback. So we do have that bet going. We made it on the radio
last week.
Yeah, make sure to reference it here. Chris thinks Drew Lock will be the week 1 starter. I think it'll be Geno Smith. $100 to the guy who's right. If it's neither guy, then the bet's
scratch.
Off. But right, I will say one thing that's so interesting about the quarterbacks. Right, I think as time has gone on over the offseason and there hasn't been any games, people have talked themselves more into Drew Lock and Geno Smith than I think they would have if there was like 1 month in between trading Russ and the first game. I think the time that has elapsed has given people, Drew might not be that bad. Whereas, like, I know how people felt about Drew prior to him joining the team. The day he joined the team is now it's them same people being like, oh, actually, I don't know. All he needs to do is just like, all right, guys, like, your opinion didn't change without no games being played. I don't know what I think it's just it's narrative. It's just like Pete and John have like fed enough info, positive reports, positive affirmations, whatever, and it's kind of shifted the minds of people, which is fine. Whatever. They're supposed to sell hope. They're on the team. Whereas I'm like, I've been watching the tape. I've been talking to people who know more about the tape than me, and it's just like none of those people's positions changed, which makes more sense to me. So we'll see. I just think that's kind of funny. That's more people as time have gone on have talked themselves into Drew in particular, not Geno as much as they talked themselves into Drew. And I'm just like, what changed? What did you guys learn? It's like, oh yeah, no, we'd be all right. It's a kind of an interesting kind of narrative switch there. I've kind of been on the same thing the whole time. Like the things that he wasn't good at in college, still wasn't good at in the pros. The things that he was good at in college has been okay at, in the pros. So I guess here's my one more thing. Sorry, I said this. All right, I got one last thing on the quarterbacks. I think, and this is a take that I imagine will never be a cold take. Like it'll never age poorly. My thing on Geno and Drew is for them to be the quarterbacks that lead the Seahawks to where they want to go. Because I think part of this is that people don't care whether the quarterbacks aren't good this year because of the 2023 class. I think that's silly. You should never go into any season in the NFL being okay with your quarterback position not being great. That's just stupid if you're trying to win a championship. I don't know why you would think that or be okay with that. It's just the most important position in football. But I think that's part of it. The other thing is for them to lead the Seahawks to where they want to go, where the team wants to go, they would have to be drastically different versions of who they have already been. Like they would have to turn into unrecognizable versions of themselves. It wouldn't just be correct a thing here or there. It would be like, no. Drew's anticipation and accuracy would have to jump into like another stratosphere to be like, oh, okay, in a playoff game at Green Bay, he can lead us there. Like to get to that play, that would be crazy. That would be a crazy jump. And the same thing with Geno. It would have to be like, oh, you would have to be Mega Man, or what's the thing that they do in Dragon Ball Z? They turn into they turn yellow and stuff.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I don't know what it's called.
Super Saiyan. They would have to go like Super Saiyan versions of themselves, which is not impossible. We have seen, actually not a ton of guys, but a few guys do it. Most recently, Josh Allen. But for the most part, it's very rare that someone just morphs into another version of themselves. Guys get better. That makes sense. But to just morph into a completely different version of yourself after you've already had a very, very poor showing over multiple starts, that's rare. That's why the Sam Darnold trade was stupid for the Panthers. They expected Sam to be a whole new guy. Nope. Same guy you saw in New York. Same guy. The Colts thought they could get Carson Wentz to be a totally new dude. Nope.
Ass.
Same Carson Wentz. Not even that he was ass. He was just the same guy. Frank Reich thought he could turn him into a different guy. No, you're just getting a different version of the same guy. Same thing that Washington's going to get from Carson Wentz. He's not going to be any different than he was in Philly and Indy. He's going to have his high moments and his low moments and won't string together enough high ones to get you to where you want to go. That's Carson Wentz. Same thing. When a team trades for Baker or Jimmy G, they're going to get the same versions of these dudes. Detroit traded for Jared Goff. They got the same Jared Goff that Sean McVay got in year one. You know, it's like, ooh, this guy's rough. Like, quarterbacks don't change that much. They just really, really don't. They can, incrementally improve, but when you ask for a whole new dude, that's rare. Ryan Tannehill is not a different dude from Miami. He's the same guy. He had one outlier year, which was 2019, I think. It was 2019 when he came in from Mariota, whatever year that was. He was a totally different guy. Then he came right back down to earth, and the numbers started to look exactly the same as the ones in Miami. So I think that people got to keep that in mind. Quarterbacks don't just go somewhere, new system, and just become new. They can get better, but to expect that they're just a new guy, which is what these two, Drew and Geno, would need to be to get them to a Super Bowl. Not just be capable. I'm talking win a division, be a championship caliber team. They would need to be totally different dudes. And that's a huge ask. You can't just be a new guy. You can be better than you were, but to be new, yeah, big ask. That's a good way to put that.
Well, on that note, we want to thank you guys for tapping in and listening to the Seahawks Man to Man podcast. If we don't have another episode dropping this week, which you probably won't, I mean, hell, we've been giving you guys.
We got Sam Gold coming on.
Oh, that's right. All right, we'll have Sam Gold sometime in May, early May, and then catch us on Saturday with the hype. Chris and Mike, 93.3 KJR FM. Yeah, we cooking. Anything else you want to add, Mike?
Yes. Sam's scheduled for what's funny, when I scheduled Sam, he was like, hey man, remind me because I'll forget. It's funny, you forgot too.
Yeah, I did.
We got Sam scheduled for
May 5th, May 4th?
May 4th, 6 o'clock Eastern, man. So hopefully you didn't got anything scheduled.
No, I have nothing scheduled. I think I have it in my notebook written down because I knew we scheduled it out. So I just forgot. But hey, we're all set.
So, we're good. We got Sam coming on what's that? I think that's Tuesday or Wednesday. So yeah,
it'll be a fun one.
Yeah,
we will catch you guys later.
All right, we're out.
Peace.